Am I the a-hole stories? Today from Remarkable Use 8439 who posted, Am I the a-hole for missing an actual emergency because I turned off my phone to avoid my wife's unnecessary contact attempts during my tech-free weekend?
My best friend 31 male and I 27 male have a tradition of taking a yearly weekend trip together that's phone-free. We've been doing this for a decade now. These weekend trips consist of us staying in a suite and exploring the city, not traversing the wilderness, so it's not like we're completely disconnected. Still, we like to keep one on hand for navigation and emergency purposes, and it would usually be friend's phone that we brought along. Friend and I left for our trip this year 2 Fridays ago to make use of the long weekend. This was the first time I had gone on one of these trips since my wife and I moved in together, got engaged, or got married. However, we were dating for the last 2 years worth of trips, 2021 and 2022, and she seemed fine during that time. I would just tell her I was going to be busy for the weekend and she'd leave me alone. I understand that there are different expectations once you get married, but I didn't expect the 180 in behavior. My wife all but demanded I take my phone as well in case she needed to get a hold of me despite her having friend's number. I let her know I had arrived, and immediately after that she was texting me and asked me how things were. Then again, asking me another question when I didn't respond to the first one. I eventually muted our text conversation because I was sick of the phone buzzing. She called me a few hours later and asked why I wasn't responding to her texts. I reiterated that this was supposed to be a no-phone weekend and kept the call short despite her trying to drag out the conversation. She called me once more after this. When I answered and found out it wasn't an emergency, I simply turned off my phone. The calls then started coming in for my friend and he followed suit. We spent the rest of the weekend with our phones off until the drive back on Monday. I called my wife and informed her when we were about 30 minutes away from my place, and she was furious. She said that there ended up being an emergency. Her sister got into a car accident that won't affect her long term, but still resulted in broken bones, and that I had just ignored her the entire time when she needed me. I told her that I was very sorry to hear about her sister, but it wasn't my fault. She had essentially forced my hand into cutting off means of communication. She went to stay with a friend before I arrived home that night and has since come home, but she's still fuming. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole, but I feel like you and your wife could have reached a compromise here. She should have been aware of the fact that you did not want to be tied to your phone during this trip. You could have realized that she wasn't comfortable with you completely disappearing for the whole weekend and never checking in with her. I feel like at least once or twice you could have written her a text saying that you were having a good time and safe. Her sister's car crash wasn't really an emergency that you could have done anything to help with, although I'm sure she wanted to make sure that you were aware of it. Doing more so that you both understand what each other's needs are moving forward will be helpful. Best of luck, OP, peace and love.